Lawrence, I think we have no choice but to jump into this right off the bat. Lawrence, let's talk about the MNC. There's a lawsuit occurring due to questionable and, I think Cassidy mentioned it, scorched earth practice when the leadership was leaving. And now it seems as though this is going against the MMF, which is the Manitoba Métis Federation, $1.5 million wrongfully paid dollars. Now, Lawrence, all I get based on what I can do is what I see in the media a little bit. What are you hearing? What's going on? Because when, President Karen stepped in, boy, she's realizing these are big, in some cases, ugly shoes to fill.
Well, I mean, right now I'm one of the 40 delegates that sit at MNC. It is a bit of a shock. Certainly we anticipated something was happening at the MNC level. We just didn't know. And when she got elected in, that's when they were sort of uncovering a lot of these sort of truths that were happening in the financial piece. We know that there was an audit there, wasn't really satisfactory to all the provinces. And, when MNC was certainly going through the COVID pandemic, they were receiving some funds. And certainly President Caron and with the help of the Board of Governors, which consists of the presidents from each province, the homeland provinces. I can't even talk today. Jeez, my God. Mm-hmm. All got together and they uncovered a little bit this truth of what went on. But I know about 800,000 of that was severance pay, and as well as contractors, significant amount of money went to them. And so they're looking at it now, and it's a statement of a claim. I don't really know the details, and certainly the details just emerged a few days ago. So I found out with everybody else.
Yeah, it seems like all the information is just slowly starting to eke its way out. And, reading one of the articles, President Karen saying, boy, her first 100 days of office have really, were not just easy. These are not, it seems like eye-opening is kind of occurring. And now, we don't want to throw too many stones. I don't have a tremendous familiarity with how the finances were working, but I think what I really like to see and what's really important is that if there was an issue, which it sure seems like there was, the statement of claim is going to open up and create dialogue, which, I didn't mean to jump right into this right off the bat. Our listeners definitely know that they're going to hear from us when it comes to things that are happening regionally, locally, federally. And I know we're going to jump into quite a number of things today, but that was one that I think just had to be highlighted. It is unfortunate that that here we are looking at what could be misappropriated funds, but now we need to do the work. Now we need to allow that agency to do the work. But boy, bit of a shock and an awe. And the term scorched earth meant, boy, somebody was trying to identify or create an issue.
Yeah, that scorched earth policy was certainly President Caron, her framework on it, and certainly if it is true and all these allegations are correct, well, then certainly that's what it does look like. And, scorched earth, it just means burning everything and just taking as much as you can when you leave.
Oh, Lawrence, always the politician. You're absolutely right. You're right. I'm not suggesting that those weren't just sort of words that were sort of allocated as a result of her, but you're right. The work will have to be done. That was ever such a great answer, Lawrence.
Yeah, well, I'm full of them, I think. I've been at this long enough to...
Well, yeah, that's true. And I know, I say it every time. Folks, he's always available for a coffee or a call. The president, Lawrence Gervais, is always there for us whenever we have those questions, part of our conversation. Lawrence, one of the next things I'm really interested in talking about, because this is becoming more aware in the lower half of Alberta, the Indigenous Gathering Place. Now, from my understanding, here was the IGP, we're going to sort of refer to them as, a group that is trying to connect the Indigenous communities when it comes to available land or allocated land for Indigenous gathering. And, you and I have talked a little bit about this in the past. We've talked a little bit about it before. What I was unaware of was that it doesn't seem as though that group is actually engaging all of the Indigenous groups seemingly very well. Can you speak a little bit to that? Because you were even on the news here recently.
Yeah, I mean, it's such it's not that difficult to really paint a picture of what Indigenous engagement means to me, as a Métis Nation. Like us at the Métis Nation of Alberta, we have a version of what Indigenous engagement means that we all voted on consensually by the Assembly to use for engagement. And that comes from government to community groups to everything. And certainly Indigenous Gathering Place, when they certainly don't have that pre-meeting, don't really understand what our version of Indigenous engagement is. They might have their own that they're trying to implement. But certainly when you work with Indigenous communities, you got to kind of figure out what their model for engagement is. And that's each individual nation. So whether it's Treaty 7, the Blackfoot Confederacy, right down to the Métis Nation, we have our own version of engagement. And usually you find those out when you have those pre-meetings before they get to such a large table. But, one of the main issues for us was that there was a motion sitting at City of Calgary, and we kind of had to act quite quickly and rapidly and go to the city because it was at that table and kind of let them know that we're not partners in this Indigenous Gathering Place, at least not yet. I mean, the door is always open. I let them know that I didn't really know what it was about, and I still don't really know because we haven't had our pre-meeting yet. So we got to have that first before we become partners, before they go to the city. And that would be the normal process. And maybe I have a distinct advantage because, I live in Calgary and I know a lot of industry and I know how they engage Indigenous communities. And they seem to have that right protocol in place. But certainly this area didn't quite have it. And hopefully we can take a step back and start the conversation again.
Well, and I think, I hear what you're saying. When it comes to a lot of the industry groups, it seems as though they're become a bit more aware of the fact that when you are, going through people's land, when you're connecting people, when you're trying to gather, when you're trying to do work, they seem to have a better understanding. But here, all of a sudden, we have, and maybe that's where councillors get confused. The term Indigenous Gathering Place, the IGP group seems as though, well, if I was to hear that, they must have done their due diligence. But it seems as though you're right. What's lacking here is that these groups haven't done their job of ensuring that for all the parties involved, that their voices are being heard. And, that we have to be very conscious of misrepresentation. And I say this all the time. If you're going to put somebody else's logo or identifier that they're aware, then they should be aware. Right? Somebody in that agency needs to be accountable for the fact that they've reached out, and they can say, oh yeah, I may not have spoken with you, but I spoke with you. And yeah, here's the record. But if you don't have that, yeah, 100% I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've had one engagement with them in 2015 that I can remember. And certainly there was action items on their part, and we sort of had the same problem was them listing us as partners when we weren't. And Marlene Lance had said to them, might be a good idea to take it off the table, right? So, but it's still continuing to this day. And that's a concern. It's a concern for us as M&A citizens. And because at the end of the day, that piece of land is bow and elbow area. It's a very significant place to First Nations, and of course, Métis were certainly secondary to that, but it was very significant even prior to Calgary even being there. It follows along the Old North Trail. There were certainly settlements and homesteads along the way, and for us as Métis people, even prior to Calgary. So we know that area, and we could offer as much support to a project like Indigenous Gathering Place that that we could really support, but they never really presented anything to us and never really asked for that protocol. So.
And I agree, right? There's no question that this is a shared land over all of this time, and it should be celebrated. Let's do the part. So folks, if you're listening out there, when you decide to have conversation in any aspect of the Indigenous community, ensure you don't have that conversation about us without us. Make sure that we're included. Make sure you reach out to that group. And if they don't come to the table, at least you could say, hey, we did everything in our power to reach out. Like, we've done our part of ensuring that you've been contacted. But if you haven't done that, be very conscientious, because this is what happens. We have to all of a sudden make a statement in order to find out, hey, can we be involved? So let's jump into some of the fun stuff that's happening across our country right now, Lawrence, right? The Freedom Convoy. Now, unbeknownst to me, not only have they been traveling all the way across Canada in order to make a statement, there was even the border crossing near Coots, right along the border there off Highway 4. The truckers have been down there and have blocked the highway for the pass, the border, since Saturday. So of course that's disrupting traffic as well. And again, it's disrupting traffic in a way that it's a challenge as it is to go, across the border. But the sad part that I'm hearing about is the desecration of the Terry Fox statue. For example, they were hanging flags on it saying, there were signs on it seemingly that are indicating that, the government's doing too much about vaccines. And yet this was not Terry's message. This is still not the message of the Terry Fox Society. Why are you touching this statue? Why are you involved in any aspect of the statue? Why are you parking your vehicles on land that's not afforded to your cause? And, again, I respect the fact that we have people who are trying to stand up for their rights. Regardless of what your right or what you feel about your rights, you don't have the right to step on other property. You don't have the right to step on, the awareness that's occurring, within the areas such as cancer research and Terry Fox, right? That I find that very sad.
Yeah, and also Terry Fox is an Indigenous person. He's Métis. His family are receiving their membership currently in BC, and also, I want to point out that the flag was upside down on the Terry Fox. He was holding it and was upside down, and I seen the picture, and yeah, it's definitely was Terry Fox a symbol of the truckers. Like I'm not understand how I understand they have every right to voice their opinions and those things in a safe manner. And they really went there to kind of shut down Ottawa in a sense, because there was homeless services that were being affected. There was a lot of the city services that are downtown. They couldn't operate quite efficiently for the community there. So, and for them to certainly verbally abuse a lot of these shelters and trying to get food and all those things, it negates that movement, that piece, what they're trying to say. And it's probably very valid what they're probably saying. But at the end of the day, if they're disrupting that much of everybody's lives, then certainly people will look on them negatively. And really, they have to understand that if you want to coordinate this movement, understand the action you're making, if it's direct or non-direct, and really implement some change. And you're not going to change Canadians' minds if you act in a certain manner, right? And that's irregardless. Mm-hmm.
No, there's no doubt. And I, sadly, these impacts that are occurring, as how you're trying to spread your message just gets overwritten by the damage that you're doing. And we've all seen, these situations. Look at the Americans and their Capitol Hill riot. I was shocked the other day when I was in my office and it said, anniversary. And I thought to myself, oh no, that was just a few months ago. It was a year that had gone by. And, the Americans needed to talk about it again. And I get it. We will talk about the trucker convoy again at some point. But, sadly, what we're going to be talking about is how they planned their action. And, again, getting support, getting that awareness is something that when it's important to you, sure, still doesn't change my mind when it comes to the science. Nobody started to prove anything to me on the other side of that. But if you're going to, take action when it comes to these things, folks, do it respectfully. That's what I'd like to scream out as loud as I can. Let's move on to some real fun, positive things, Lawrence.
You said that last time.
Sports today. I think I say that all the time. Yeah, that we're going to move. And of course, something challenging really comes up or all of a sudden we jump into it. But some of the fun things that I wanted to comment about just in the world of sports is Canada beat the USA today in soccer. That creates the very good likelihood that we are going to the World Cup in Qatar. And I don't think we've ever been there before. We've never had that strength in soccer, but we played a fabulous game. We beat Honduras recently. We beat Mexico in the past. And these were all heated games. And now we beat our rivals, the US. Our rivals in any kind of sport. So exciting all the way across. Oilers and the Flames are winning. Rafael Nadal just won his 21st major down in Australia. So fun things are happening all over. What were you watching today, Lawrence?
Well, I think I watched a bit of the tennis. That's really early, though. It was Australia time, but Novak's certainly was probably feeling it, not being there. But you know, very congratulations. I mean, Nadal had an injury and he came back, and you know, I watched certainly a bit of the soccer game, just the beginning, because I got into the football game. But you know, and then I think it's great that we're going to the World Cup. And we kind of borrowed that coach from the women's team, came over to the men's, and we're doing really well with the men's now. So I think we should give that guy the Order of Canada.
Yeah, he's a very strong. Can we give him an honorary Métis status? Is that how that works? Maybe we can't do that. Folks, if any of you know that coach and you have a chance to get Lawrence and I on that team to go to the World Cup, though I'm not great, I'd be more than happy to be there to support on the sidelines. Team Canada, as well, as we're getting closer and closer to the Beijing Olympics and the unique time in politics, the time in COVID, the time in awareness of the government stances on, Hong Kong and China. We were supposed to be having 2 specially arranged flights for our athletes. 109 athletes are on their way. There's a 70-page guide for them when they arrive. But Air Canada suspended their flights due to COVID. And I think now what they're trying to do is put together a couple of planes in order to try and get our athletes over there. You know, best wishes to all of them, of course. And this is their time in their life to be at the highest level of sport. I wish we weren't faced with, such a challenge, but, we're rooting for you.
Well, I mean, it's either that or postpone. I mean, that's always another option. They, really want to plan this around Omicron, coming down from its peak, right? So, but there's a lot of people that are getting, certainly sick. It's just, and not ending up in the hospital. But certainly if they make COVID, their political thing stands to say, you're not allowed to compete if you're getting COVID, right? Then you're going to limit a lot of those athletes in a sense, right? And certainly it's understandable because they could be spreading it too, if you allow them to compete. So yeah, it's a very tough scenario that the Olympics are in right now, especially this time of year. And it may be waiting till the spring, when it clears up a bit, or even the summer. That's an option.
Well, with how much money spent, I think that's often a challenge, right? The infrastructure, the people, the volunteers, the teams, everybody moving around the world. We are starting to see that we're becoming endemic in this pandemic. And as COVID sort of takes hold, as these new variants take hold, we are going to start seeing more, restrictions lifting. And I, for one, just like anybody else, am excited about it, right? We're happy to see these. We want to try and find what is going to be our new normal and create the best normal that we can for our families. But, nobody wants to be the person who has to make that decision to stop any of these events. So I understand that. But, when all of a sudden the economics come to play and go, yeah, but all we're going to do is send over 90 or 109 people and 75 of them may get Omicron and now they can't perform. Yeah, I guess it's no different. The hockey teams have had to make these decisions. The NFL, all of the sports leagues, in every league, in every school. Maybe this is just one more group, but I'm hoping the best for our athletes, of course.
Yeah, I mean, they wait 4 years to do this, and some of them only go to one Olympics, and it would be really sad if they can actually compete.
Folks, this episode is brought to you by the Steel River Group. We're aligning Indigenous communities, people, and businesses with industry to discover great opportunities together. For more information, go to www.steelrivergroup.com. And now back to the show. I'm interested, Lawrence, in your opinion I'm pretty confident I would have made the hockey team if it wasn't for my leg injury. But you, I assume, card playing or maybe wallet making. What would have been your Olympic skill? Because I am not sure what might have been the best sport for you.
I think those guys who hand out the hockey sticks when one breaks, they I'd be that guy, the stick guy.
Yeah, okay, that's probably okay. Okay, folks, if any of you know anybody on the hockey team, 'cause let's be honest, yeah, there's no way I'm playing on the team. But if Lawrence can hand out the sticks, I'd like to hand out the water bottles. I'm great at washing my hands. I know how to make sure that I spray the water before I hand it to somebody. So if any of you know any of those people, folks, try and get Lawrence and I on one of those teams. We couldn't be happier to be there. More artists, Lawrence, are removing themselves from Spotify. Neil Young, who has always impressed me at how he chooses what he wants to say long before he's ever worried about his music, right? The music has always been there for him. But at the end of the day, Neil Young is a sounding voice. Well, he said, listen, if you're going to leave Joe Rogan and his opinions on Spotify, who I think they paid him like $100 million. I don't know how they could take him off because they probably still owe him that money. Neil Young said, then take my music off. Well, now Bruce Springsteen, Nuz Lofgren, Joni Mitchell, they're stepping up saying, you know what? Take our music off Spotify too. Are we going to see, is this just going to be a short, reaction? I think Neil Young now is saying there's other streaming services out there that he'll give you for free if you move off of Spotify. So maybe we'll start to see this is how change has to happen, right? Neil Young is sacrificing something. He's saying, I'm willing to take my music off this platform.
Well, we're on Spotify right now. I mean, people are probably listening and going, oh no, are they talking about leaving? But no worries. We're not going anywhere. But at the same time,
no, but at some point, Lawrence, we might have to.
Yeah, we may not even exist. But at the same, to be quite honest, Neil Young, Bruce Springsteen, Joni Mitchell, these individuals, I think are very significant for the young people, because I know a lot of young people may not listen to these groups. Like Drake, those bigger acts really need to start getting involved in this whole ban Spotify thing, if they're wanting, right? And I think that'll probably make the discussion at Spotify headquarters. I'm not sure what those CEOs really think about Neil Young, because they certainly never acted right away or didn't really give a response even. And we still haven't seen a response even with Bruce Springsteen. So who knows?
Well, and I think that information just came out, just recently. So just how the world is going to react to it is going to be something. And you're absolutely right. These are different levels of musicians. So we're going to have to see. Nowadays, the movements that happen as a result of social media end up being, in some cases, extremely big and impactful. But you're right. I guess we're going to have to wait.
Well, I mean, the generation who downloads music, I'm not even sure if it's even ours, even though we might like Neil Young and them, but I think the downloadable generation are the younger ones. And really those artists have to take a stand in order to make the difference. But that's just my opinion.
No, I agree.
This episode brought to you by the Métis Nation of Alberta, with a vision of a strong Métis Nation embracing Métis rights, and a mission to pursue the advancement of the socioeconomic and cultural well-being of the Métis people of Alberta. For more information, go to www.albertamétis.com. Now, back to the show.
Oh, Lawrence, the light has come on. This is probably the most exciting part of our show, except for everything else that we talk about, which is just as fabulous as well. And Lawrence, thank you for patience when it comes to me getting a chance to share this. The one thing that I wanted to jump on today to move away a little bit from our youth is a conversation I'd like to have for not just our elders, but I think often this is who it impacts. And that issue in the world of scams right now is when threat actors come to your door or they phone call you and say, I'm a friend of a family member of yours. And this person has found themselves in a little bit of hot water. And what will help will be some money. Now, we all react like this, folks. When somebody calls and says, boy, your son, has gotten himself into a bit of hot water and he's in jail. And there can be every level of lie that occurs. Now, the more mail somebody has stolen from you or opened or looked at or found any information, or can find that information on your Facebook or on your Instagram, elders, seniors, or everybody of any other age, if somebody's looking at your information, they already have some awareness of you. But what seems to happen is they will prey on a senior and say, boy, your son, Johnny, found himself in a bit of hot water, and it's going to be $1,000 to bail him out. And that family member who's very concerned, their immediate response is, well, I'll get $1,000. Let's get him out of jail and we will deal with it after that. Folks, if anybody ever comes to your door, politely say, I'll need to deal with this. You'll have to come back. Don't let them in. And then immediately go call 911 and say, here's what's occurring. Nothing good will come of giving anybody or e-transferring anybody any money. If you have a concern, but you want to stop those people from coming to your door, and if anything is occurring, the police will help you. So folks, don't fall for these are very aggressive scams when somebody's coming to your door. Don't try to stop this person yourself. Listen to them, say, I'm going to write this information down. I can't help you at this time, and immediately call 911. And if you have cameras at your place, share the footage with the police. Those are the people who are best to deal with that. So that's our scam of the week.
Well, I just want to make a comment on that. And, understanding that maybe instead of a video and you're, videoing people come to your door, maybe invest in a flamethrower, so you can push a button. And if they're trying to scam you, it's, 100,000 degree heat in their face, right? So
So I don't know if those there's tools out there that are available at this time to be activated by an app. But folks, if you make any money on that idea, as Lawrence and I often request, try and include us in your fundraising strategies. Again, as we've done in our show, we thank our sponsors. We thank all of our friends who are listeners. We thank our families, and we thank for everybody who sends an email to us. Lawrence at thesqueakywheel.ca, or fire one off to me, Ross at thesqueakywheel.ca. And as Leighton will often put on this show, you can find us and connect with us. Lawrence, last week, I was talking about there was that Métis gentleman, and I just want to close a little bit of that chapter. His name was Louis Roy, and January 11th, he passed away. He was a 101-year-old Métis veteran of the Second World War. Died in a long-term care home in L'Île-à-la-Crosse, Saskatchewan. So he served in the Second World War as a member of the Saskatoon Light Infantry, joining the Canadian Armed Forces in 1942 at the age of 22. He served in England, Africa, Sicily, and Italy. And folks, a big thank you to his family. I hope that they're listening, and we just want to say very much our appreciation for his time served. Respectfully, at 101 years old, I'm really happy. I hope he went nice and quick. Yeah,
shout out to Isla-Crosse. That's the way. And that's near where my parents are born, right? So... all my cousins are watching going, what, Lila Cross? But anyways.
I knew I'd get stung again, Lawrence. When it comes to either the French or whether we're speaking Michif, I'm guaranteed the one who's always constantly here to learn. Good catch. Thank you for that. Sadly, another loss in the artist world was, I don't know if you remember Johnny Fever. Any of our young listeners probably won't remember that, but Howard Hessman he was on the TV show WKRP. And one of my favorite episodes of that show was he was a DJ, and they were trying to show that every time you have a drink, your speed of your reactions goes down. And he was one of these rare characters that every time he'd have another drink, his speed and reaction would go up. And he just had that rock and roll, perfect kind of DJ behind him. So it'll be a sad loss for the arts community.
Yes, for sure. Wow. Yeah.
One real fun thing, though, that is coming back is there was a puppeteer in Susina who's bringing back Fraggle Rock. Now, I grew up in that generation of watching those puppets as they lived in that little, in that community where those little miners...
Wasn't it a cave, underground cave or something?
Oh, okay. Well, essentially a cave, but there was little miners who moved around and they were doing all the rock.
I remember that.
But yeah, Fraggle Rock. I once had a red puppet, and oddly, he looked exactly like you when you have a beard.
Yeah. That's when I drink. Yeah. That's why I don't drink anymore.
That's right. That's why you make it safer. But yeah, he was fabulously red. And I guess the last thing I want to close off on, Lawrence, is the top court of Alberta has rejected the Grassy Mountain Coal mine for reassessment. Now, I understand, right? In our province, we're fortunate with our resources. We have our oil resources, we have the coal resources, we have lumber, we have fabulous workers, we have our animal husbandry when it comes to our cattle and such. I just want to really focus a couple of attentions on, we are working as a province, as a nation towards greener energy, right? We're with the idea of satellite. We respect Mother Earth and we support Mother Earth. Right now, everybody's like, well, can't we just do everything electric? Folks, if your battery in your electric vehicle dies, it's about $29,000 from whatever you paid for that vehicle. And a lot of those Teslas were $120,000, $130,000. Or the other cars, the Leafs, the Nissan Leafs out there that you might have been paying $60,000 for because you're doing your part for the earth. I think on average, it's about $29,000 to $30,000 to replace the battery. So what happens to that vehicle when nobody wants to replace the battery? Really, the rest of the car isn't worth very much. Does it just become disposable? So are you essentially just buying disposable batteries that get thrown out? Think about it. And it takes energy to make these products. So if you can't use electric energy to make this product, what are you making it out of? So I just wanted to close out on that. Lawrence, give me your opinion, and then let's close out another wonderful week on the Squeaky Wheel.
Well, I'm one of those guys who encourages this, ideas and innovation, and we certainly have enough people that are starting the conversation. Certainly, when the electric vehicles came out, they had a forecast that we'd all be driving them within 5 or 6 years, and that never really happened. And I think because they realized the cost to actually make these automobiles. But if we get to that level where we're able to actually do that and achieve a lot of those goals, I don't mind you plugging it into an electric current. It saves me the time to go to a gas station and your hands start smelling like gas and you get in your vehicle and you're like, what the hell, right? But certainly if we get to that space where we're saving the environment and everybody's on board, well, then hopefully we'll change a lot of this climate issues that we kind of seen over the summer, even last year. We know that there's some things going on with the environment right now.
Well, and I'm hearing what you're saying. We all have to do our part for the environment. There's no doubt, and let's continue to use the technology as we move forward. To all of our listeners out there, if any of you have a spare pair of gloves, if you can mail them to the Region 3 office, Lawrence could use those to keep the fuel off his hands as he's filling his truck. But to all of our listeners out there,
he said
if you're interested in sponsoring our show.
That's a normal thing.
If you're interested in sponsoring our show, you're always welcome to reach out to us. We appreciate our sponsors. Thank you to all of our listeners. Thank you to Leighton and everybody behind the scenes who's helping share the conversation. From the President, Lawrence Gervais, and from myself, the Captain, Ross Memphis Pambrun. Thank you for listening. Thank you for connecting. Follow us on LinkedIn, folks, and reach out and do your part. Thank you, and keep the wheel squeaking. The Squeaky Wheel is brought to you by the Squeaky Wheel Company, co-hosted by the President, Lawrence Gervais, Memphis Region 3, and the Captain, Ross Memphis Pambrun. Our program is broadcast from Calgary in Region 3 of the Métis Nation of Alberta, which is part of the historic Métis Nation homeland. We also acknowledge these lands are the traditional territories of Treaty 7, Blackfoot Confederacy, Siksika, Kainai, Piikani, Tsuut'ina, and Stoney Nakoda, with whom we share this land on the basis of our historical and ongoing relationships. You can always reach us for comment about our programming by email at tsw@thesqueakywheel.ca or find us on our website, www.squeakywheel.ca, and our socials. For our comments, it is our focus to recognize all of our First Nations and Indigenous friends, share connection with Métis settlements, and listen to and show respect to our Métis brothers and sisters and families. Here at the Squeaky Wheel, we give thanks to our elders for their guidance and to Mother Earth for her time she allows us to be here and share her bounty. From all of us at the Squeaky Wheel, Tansi.